Meeting to order, and we'll begin with item number 2, and that's the adoption of the agenda and AB 361 finding. Do we have a motion, or do we have any, do we need to call for public comment on that?
Well, yeah, I guess technically.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in person. Is there anybody on the phone that wants to speak on that item? Okay, not seeing any. Is there any comment from the board or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Chairman Peters,
Aye?
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Rotora,
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear public comment on the closed session agenda. The speakers have 3 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making your presentation. And not having anybody in person, do we have anybody on the phones that would like to speak on the closed session agenda? Okay, seeing none, is there any comment from the board or a motion? Okay, looking for a motion on the closed session agenda. Oh, okay. Okay, thought we had to approve that. Okay, well then, we will adjourn to closed session and return at 11 a.m. To reconvene, we'll begin with a report from GA Counsel Keith Lemieux on actions taken in closed session.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
The board met in closed session to discuss the items identified on the closed session. That includes the water purchase and also the litigation matters. The board received reports from the agency negotiator on the water purchase and from agency counsel on litigation. No reportable action took place. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the report.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, I would like to ask you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And lastly, for item 5, could we please call the roll?
Chairman Peters,
Here.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Present.
Director Itmeyer,
Here.
Director Rotora,
Here.
Director Vallejo.
Present.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to item number 6, which is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name before making your presentation. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public presentations?
Judy Decker. I'm a director on the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District Board, and I would like to invite all of you to a talk that is going to be given on September 24th at 11 o'clock in the morning on using native desert plants in an urban landscape. The talk will be given by Emma Lynch, who is a resource person at the local Bureau of Land Management. We will be having our plant sale again this year, and our plant sale is going to emphasize plants that are actually native to the Mojave Desert. They've been grown for us by the Mojave Land Trust that is in Joshua Tree. Our plant sale will be the last Saturday of October. You'll be able to find the plant list on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Good information. Any other members of the public would like to speak?
Quick question, Chairman Peters, for Judy. Will that be, could you let us know if that'd be available online on a Zoom or a computer?
Yes, will
Okay.
the talk be available online?
Yes,
No, it won't.
okay.
No, I don't know that it's going to be given at Matarenga Museum, and I'm not sure they have that electronic capability. But
Okay.
the list will be available online.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other speakers here in the room? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the phones. Go ahead, caller. Caller, go ahead.
Hello, this is Renee Westolusk. I live within Ridgecrest city limits. I'm just calling to find out if the other board members of the GA are aware of the discussion that was at the water district on Monday night regarding the quality of the water that would be coming up from the pipeline from the AVEC Cal City connection. Are you aware of there's concerns about the quality of the water?
We've been briefed on water import. I don't know if there's anything specific you wanted to bring up.
Chairman, this is Phil Hall. I watched the Water District's meeting, and I understand what April is referring to. And I got to say,
Renee.
Renee, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sick, guys, so my head's pounding. But Renee, I saw the meeting too. I watched, and I was very dismayed at what was being presented at that meeting. There is no scenario in which we are going to put a water in a pipeline, pipe it 20 miles, and deliver it directly into somebody's house, which is what Don Zadiba was saying was the project. They are citing a reservoir. Reservoir will be where some storage tanks are that water reaches to, and then that water is treated for any potential byproducts that have occurred over the 20 miles that water is sent to this basin, and then it's put into the system. It is not a direct connection into the system like a 20-mile pipeline like they were talking about. I'm just completely dismayed by the whole conversation that happened at the Water District's meeting. The Water District voted for the RFP that brought Provost and Pritchard into this basin to work on this. And at one point in time, the general manager complained about not being involved in the RFP process. So I don't really know what to say about it other than that. I can tell you that the system will come into a reservoir tanks. Steve is here. We've talked about siting these reservoir tanks. If you come into Bakersfield, you look on the mountain north of Bakersfield, you're going to see two huge tanks that are used for this very purpose. And it'll be sort of identical to what happens out there. You'll have the water dropped into these tanks. It'll be further refined if needed, treated, take care of any byproducts, blended, whatever, and then brought into the system. There is no direct connection from a 20-mile pipeline into somebody's house. I hope that answers your question, Renee.
Yeah, they were just stating that they had reservation. They declined being the water district being directly hooked up to the connection, as that was part of the discussion, because they were worried about, they said, if there were byproducts from purification of the water that sometimes settle out or something.
Yeah. I mean, 20-mile pipeline stuff can happen. That's why you go to a reservoir, which is what Provost and Pritchard is worried about citing, is the reservoir. And obviously, a reservoir is then connected into the system. So I don't know what the breakdown was in communication at the Water District Board meeting, but it was not factual as to what's actually going on. And
Phil?
To have Don say
Phil,
that they are not going
Phil,
to.
this is Keith. I just want to remind you that we're responding to public comment. It's not an agenda item, so we need to keep this brief.
I get that, which is why I'm about to be end. Don repeatedly said there's not going to be a direct connection into the system. He's absolutely right. There will not be a direct connection of a 20-mile pipeline into the system. It's going to a reservoir.
Okay, well, that explains everything, and I hope the water board can be brought up to speed on this. Thank you. I just glad for the clarification.
Renee, this is Steve. Just real quick, there's not a lot of engineering firms. There are some, but there aren't a lot of engineering firms that I will vouch for. But Provost and Pritchard is a very reputable firm. We've worked with them before. They do their due diligence. They'll do a good job. We are in the very preliminary stages of trying to figure out how to bring this water in and most efficiently, cost effectively deliver water that meets all of the drinking water requirements. So there will be no issue with drinking water that's brought into this basin, just so you know.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any additional callers? Okay, and just a reminder, please make your comments and then bring them to a close, and then if you have any questions, we'll try and get you some clarification to that. Go ahead, caller.
Okay, yes, my name is Mike Neal. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was going to talk about one subject, but now, after what was just stated, I'd like to make a brief comment, kind of responding to that. And I'll just say that in and around this valley, based on the actions and apparent intentions of both the water district on their hand and the GA on their hand, people in this valley probably have an order of magnitude more trust in what the water district has to say about the water situation, taking care of the water sent to their customers, and taking care of that situation, which they've been on the front end and actually have done work that the GA is now just simply replicating and charging us a lot of money to do so. As far as the GA and the trust that we have, I think most of you really know where that stands in this valley. And to hear the county council once again disparage the water district, and I was at the meeting and I heard what was said, and he's misrepresenting the whole tenor of the meeting and what was said and so forth. So the water district is simply talking about byproducts that can be caused by pumping chlorinated water into pipes and pumping at 60 miles or so forth, and make sure that they take care of that, and they will take care of that. Sorry it wasn't clear to some people. It's certainly clear to myself. Now, as far as former actions of the GA, distributing water allocations to the various users and saying that we've got 5,000 acre feet basically of overdraft, not counting, of course, not doing the simple math and realizing the fact that there's going to be 2,000 plus acre feet coming out of the water treatment plant. Taking that into the equation, they've now committed us to buy water entitlements, which we were just informed, and not from the GA, by the way, but from a private party, that state water allocation percentages for the last 2 or 3 years have been
Are you there, Mr. Neal? I think we lost you. Hello?
Mike, are you still there?
Okay. If you wanted to finish your comments and call back in, we'll give you some more time. In the meantime, can we go to the next caller, please? Go ahead, caller.
Yes, this is Elaine Mead. And is there some way that you can pick up the volume on Phil Peters' mic? And also, I couldn't hear Steve Johnson. I mean, it's a waste of time to tune in if we can't hear anybody.
Okay. We'll ask our engineers back there if there's something they can, some adjustment they can make to the volume of the microphones.
Elaine, can you hear me now? Elaine, can you hear me now? Maybe
I
she's
don't
not
think
out.
she can, Steve.
I can hear you, Steve.
Yeah. I don't know. Is Elaine even still on?
Okay, Elaine, are you still there? Okay, I don't think so. Well,
Okay.
hopefully we can do something to bring up the volume on these mics just a little bit.
Yeah. I'll get closer to the mic and speak as clearly as I can.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Okay, next caller, please. Okay, go ahead, caller.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. It's Emmanuel calling back. I got cut off. I have some more to say. Why don't you give me an idea how much time you're going to allow me here on my continued comments?
You have a little less than a minute, but we'll give you a minute if you just want to go ahead and bring your comments to a close.
Okay, let me continue with what I was saying there in the next minute. Just want to make the users in the valley know that the overdraft has been declared to be 5,000 acre feet when it really should be a whole lot less than that. And the state water allocation percentages of what we're actually going to get for what we buy for these highly expensive water entitlements. In 2020, it was 20%, 21, it was 5%, 22 was 5%. So if let's take a recent example, by 750 acre feet, we're going to get a whole 37.5 acre feet. So my question to the GA is, you're saying we need to buy entitlements for, I believe you're going for 8,000 acre feet. Are you now going to make that 20,000 or 50,000 acre feet because the state has a classic record of screwing up, not providing water to people, and we're going to have to buy 8 to 10 times more than what we actually need and pay, now instead of 50 million, we're going to have to pay, 400 or 500 million. So I'd like an answer to that. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Johnson, Steve, if you're still on the line.
Sure. I am, and I'll do the best I can to answer Mr. Neal's question. First of all, I don't think there was a real question on the first comment he had about the previous discussion about the water district and imported water deliveries. I'll just say, and this is the where it's at, Mr. Neal, is that the reason Provost and Pritchard reached out to the water district and the reason why we have that in the contract under the scope of work to reach out to the water district is because we want to work together with the water district and make sure this works right. So it's unfortunate that the first task of reaching out to the water district to coordinate the delivery of this water so that it works for the best of the water district and the community ended up with a level of confusion. But I can just tell you that we at the Groundwater Authority look forward to working together with the water district for a successful project. So just to set that aside. On the overdraft, we have released tables over the years. Water district has them, so I don't know if you're getting information from the water district or who you're getting information from, but the recycled water project that we are working on with the water district and the city and the consultants, the recycled water district and the yield from that project for the upgrades is included in all of our projections of overdraft and what we need for imported water. It's all there. It's all in tables. It's all been presented. If you'd like me to send them to you, send me an email and I'll send you what has been released. But it's all very clear.
Thanks, Stephen. Could you also hit on the reliability factor of the state water?
Sure. How do I go about this? I've been around this system for over 45 years. The state water project system has been disappointing in that it's never going to produce what was originally contracted for. But everybody contracting for state water project table A entitlement is contracting based upon prior record of delivery and projected deliveries being done by the state. There's a lot of work being done projecting what those water deliveries will be. And we are still basing all of our projections on water supply from the state water project and table A entitlement based upon historic deliveries and the projected deliveries. There's nothing better to go on. But suggesting that we would or we should project our table A entitlement needs based upon these last 3 drought years, really doesn't make any sense, and we would not do that. So we are working with the best information available, along with everybody else in the state who gets water from the State Water Project.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Chairman Peters, if I could add something to that.
Yes, sir.
Our whole fee structure is out there. You can go look at the engineering report and see what's in it. Table A entitlement is a percentage of how much of the infrastructure that brings water from the Northern Sierras down south. It's a percentage. It's not water because you can't sell water that hasn't dropped 20 years in the future. It's a percentage of a system. The system was never completely built out because we decided we didn't need to build things in California to that level, but a good percentage of the system is built. So it's all a subtraction of a mathematical equation, which is a percentage. So setting that aside, then of course you have, as I just said, you don't know what's going to rain in 20 years. It goes up and down. The reliability of the system is at 54%. If you have a table allocation of 8,000 acre foot, you release every year, you should be looking at about a 54% return from that allocation. Again, that allocation is based on a system that isn't completely built, and it has to deal with the hydrology of Mother Nature and how much it rains. But that's what you look at is you get 54% back. The numbers that are being thrown out there now of 5,000 acre foot, they include Searles Valley Mineral. If Searles Valley Mineral wants to pump in this basin, we have to include that allotment, which is 2,500 acres in and of itself, on top of what Trona gets in our system. So that's 2,750 right there. Bottom line is, if you do not factor in Trona and you just consider the domestic types uses of this basin and the Navy, this basin is over pumping by almost 40% what goes into the ground. That's where we're at. That's why we have to have imported water, because the recycled water cannot make that up enough. It's short, depending on how you want to look at, 1,000 to 2,000 acre foot a year. The reliability factor I want to point out, talking about this 5%, there was, as Mike Neal said, there was somebody outside of our system. It wasn't outside of the system. It's Mojave Pistachios owner put out an op-ed speaking about the reliability. Well, he says he's on the Bell Ridge Water Storage District's board of directors as a vice president. You can go to right now the Bell Ridge Water Storage District website, which is at bellridgewsd.com, and you can look at the allocation history of the State Water Project on there. When you look at this 20-year project history of what's been sent out through the state system, remember, anything above 54% means you got all of the water that you anticipated. About 50% of the years in that 20 years are above the number that we would anticipate, and 50 are below. 2017, 85% was delivered. 2019, 75% was delivered. Those are just recent ones. 2016, 60% delivered, above. Yes, the past 3 years we've been in a drought and it's below, but that's anticipated. That's how import water works in the state, which is why in this basin, we need to be very careful with how much we pull out of storage as we're getting import supply in, because that water storage is your savings account. In a year like this year, if we were on the import system now and we weren't getting imported supplies because of Mother Nature's drought, we would be relying on our wells that we have in the system already to pump the storage in the basin to deliver groundwater rather than import water to your home this year, because it's a drought year. That's the way the system has worked. That's the way the allocation system works. That's the way the reliability factor works. To worry about this year being 5% is a complete red herring and completely shows a lack of understanding of how import water works in the entire state of California. That's all.
Okay, Phil, thanks for that breakdown. Are there any other callers on the phone? Okay, seeing none. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I just had a
Director
quick
Hammond.
comment. I just wanted to add, too, that along with what Steve Johnson had mentioned about the last 3 years in the drought. So we've had 3 consecutive years of a La Nina weather occurrence. And so I'll just read this off real quick and end it. But the occurrence of 2 consecutive La Nina winters in the northern hemisphere is common, but having 3 in a row is relatively rare. A triple dip La Nina lasting 3 years in a row has happened only twice since 1950. This particular long La Nina is probably just a random blip in the climate, scientists say. So to use that, these past 3 years, it's an inaccurate use of data for comparing, to the state water yearly allocation. So,
Good point. Thank you, Director Hammond. Okay, that will bring us to the end of public presentations, and we'll go now to item number 7, which is board member comments. And I'll just go through each of the directors. Director Hammond, any comment?
no comments.
Director Rotora? Director Itmeyer? Director Itmeyer, any comment? Okay, Director Vallejo?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask about the audit and when we might expect to see that, or what the status is.
It is in progress. We are hoping to have a draft in October, probably towards the end of the month. Not sure whether it will actually be available to come to the board for approval. Maybe that might be November, but we're hoping to have a draft of the audit completed by the end of October.
Thank you. Do we know what the holdup's been? Is it just they're inundated with work, or is it incomplete data that they have, or?
It's just a variety of things. We have a new partner at the audit firm who's working on it. The gentleman that we had worked with for the past several years left the firm, so we have a new person that we're working with. A couple of our staff members have also had some time off, both for bereavement and maternity, as we know. So it's just a variety of things that have contributed to pushing the schedule back a little bit.
Understood. Thank you, Carol. Okay, so that will take us to our next item.
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick comment.
I'm sorry,
Apologize.
sir.
Just to let everybody know that the Navy completed the project review process for the COSO ESB funds for this year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to fit any external projects into the budget this year, but we do encourage you to continue to submit in the next couple of years. We may have some money available to take care of the monitoring well project.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my apologies. Any other comments? Okay, great. So now we'll head to item number 8, which is the consent agenda, and that includes item 8A, the approval of August 10th board minutes, and item 8B, which is approval of expenditures. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second on the consent agenda?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, great. I think I heard Mr. Vallejo first. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Rotora,
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Okay, the board will now hear item number 9, which is an update on water rights financing and a potential financing offer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll provide that. In your packet, we have a brief report, and this will be brief. As you know, our finance team, which is basically led by Wolf Hansen with Oppenheimer, they have been compiling a great deal of information about the Groundwater Authority, about our pending water rights purchase. They've been putting that information together and speaking to potential investors, to various banks. We had hoped to have information to share with you today. The process has just been extended a bit, and so unfortunately, we don't have that information to share with you this month. We do hope to have some more information for you, though, next month at our next meeting.
Understood. Thank you, Carol. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, number 9? Any questions or comments from the board?
Not here.
Okay, and could you correct me if I'm wrong? This is just informational item. We don't need a vote on this, correct? That's correct. Thank you. Okay, so our next item will be item number 10, and that is a report from our water resource manager. And for that, I will turn it over to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Good to see everybody on the board. Everybody, we're back together, trying to get some things done, and that's great. Today I have Jeff and Myra, and certainly Jean Moran. We're going to provide an update on the stuff that the most important thing. We're working on other things, obviously, but the most important things we're working on, we try to include in the Water Resource Manager report. Myra is there, so we'll try to get through the entire Water Resource Manager report. So if you have questions, maybe make some notes, and then we'll come back and try to answer any of the questions to try to keep this thing moving along. So Jeff or Myra, whoever's ready to start with the grant funding update.
Okay, yeah, I can start off with the grant funding update. Let's see, for Prop 1, we currently have invoice 14A. That one's still under review. That one has a requested payment after retention of $64,941.88. Also invoice 15A, that one invoice package and progress report was submitted on August 30th. The total requested payment after retention is $17,532.41. Let's see. The next slide is the summary for the Prop 1 grant payment. So far, there have been about 15 invoices submitted, and the total amount due for those is about $266,945.47. The amount awarded for Prop 1 is about $2.1 million, and the total amount remaining to request is $301,288.04. Moving on to Prop 68 for the status update, invoice 14A has been approved and is currently awaiting payment. The total requested payment after retention for that one is $1,885.36. Invoice 15B, that package and progress report was submitted also August 30th. With a total requested payment after retention of $21,932.48. Let's see, the Prop 61 grant payment summary. There have been about a total amount due so far of $53,907.99. The amount awarded for Prop 68 is about $330,000, with the total remaining amount to requested is about $10,244.87. As we are nearing the end of the Prop 1 and Prop 68 closeout, the final grant report is currently in progress. The grant completion report will be due to DWR on December 1st. We are currently coordinating with our DWR grant manager regarding final submissions, including the retention invoices. Okay, thank you.
That's great, Myra. Thank you very much. I'll just point out, Myra mentioned under Prop 1 that we still have about $300,000 to invoice, and we're trying. We just had a discussion in house earlier. We're trying real hard to use up all that money on a couple of the projects that we had listed and budgeted for. We weren't able. For example, we had some aquifer performance testing that we we're going to do. I think we budgeted for 3 or 4, and I think we only were able to do 2 of those. We got help from some of the producers. We got help from the water district, but getting access to wells and actually performing the work and burning up the money we've had some hiccups in trying to get that done. So we will be coming back with an assessment of how much we think we're going to be able to get in before the end of this contract to be able to use up the remaining funds. So we'll come back with more information on that. And I think Jeff is going to talk about the implementation grant funding.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. I actually want to make a comment on what Steve just said about the Prop 1 funding. Most of the funds that are still remaining and can be used were left from the SDAC project, the severely disadvantaged communities part of the grant. We had two projects we originally had in the grant. One of them was a rebate program for water efficient fixtures for homes. And so I think some of you will recall we had almost no participation in that, so we didn't use anywhere near as much money as we thought we would through that program, as much as we had budgeted. So we shifted money to the second program, which was a water audit, leak detection, and repair program for the small systems throughout the basin. And we had a lot more success with that, but been shifting the scope of work a little bit, working with Department of Resources to try and use up all of that money. And that consultant has been out now doing some more leak detection work on a couple of systems since we had the funds available to get the most benefit out of that. So we are trying to use as much of that as we can. And we'll report at the end where we come out on that. So I'll start now with the Sigma implementation grant status. Thank you. DWR awarded $7.6 million to the authority. The agreement was executed on August the 12th. We had a kickoff meeting last week with your staff, your legal representation, and some of our staff with DWR, to talk about the process, the forms. It was very useful, very thorough meeting. They told us some things they would be looking for, some things kind of help us on reporting and invoicing them. So that was a good meeting. And that grant allows us to build some of the work we've already done. So that'll be one of the first things Myra and others in our office will be working on under this grant, is to get an invoice in for work that's already been done on the imported water project. On the imported water pipeline alignment study, the board authorized an agreement with Provost and Pritchard on July the 22nd. We gave them a written notice to proceed on August the 17th after all the contracts were executed and insurance certificates submitted. Since then, we had a kickoff meeting with Provost and Pritchard on August the 24th. They started gathering data that they need for the study. They had a meeting with the Water District on September the 7th. That's been talked about some in the meeting. I will say with Provost and Pritchard, before we hired them, before they submitted a proposal, we had a pre-proposal meeting for all of the consultants that might be interested in doing this study for us. Provost and Pritchard was the one who brought up the subject of needing to take a careful look at water quality if we're going to bring in AVEC water and try and utilize it in the Water District system. So they've been aware of that and had proposed things that they were considering, blending in a reservoir, potentially additional treatment. So I think, the issue is recognized and does have to be addressed for it to work. They had their first field trip on Friday. I haven't spoken to them since the field trip. They were going some preliminary look at the alignments and some of the territory there. And they've already started basically some kind of brainstorming on what the potential alignments will be, getting some input from some of their sub-consultants. One of the next tasks will be looking at the capacity that's needed in the pipeline, taking a closer look at that than we had in the past. They'll be speaking to AVEC, and they're coordinating with Capital Corps on that, because Capital Corps really lead on communicating with AVEC and how the Groundwater Authority can interact with and move forward with AVEC. One of the things that we need to do for our grant requirements is submit an environmental information form and then a schedule of the deliverables under the grant. Legal counsel is reviewing the environmental information form now, and we're updating our deliverable schedule. Those are all due by November 31st, so we'll get all of those in. I'll go to the next slide, which is about the recycled water program. Under the recycled water analysis study, just a reminder that we've done 5 sections of the analysis already of the report, and it's been determined that an advanced water treatment plant and injection is the best option for use of the recycled water that's going to be available. We had a meeting with the regional board on October the 18th, a virtual meeting. The city's engineer participated in that, or consulting engineer, as did the water district's consulting engineer. We talked about the process for permitting, specific items that needed to be considered. They were very knowledgeable about the process. I haven't worked with this particular regional board before, so I was glad to hear that they seem very knowledgeable about the process that we're going to go through. So just giving them a preview of where we're going. We've laid out the criteria. After we had completed the groundwater sustainability plan, the water district had its consulting engineer take a look at an injection project and do some more refinement on that concept. And part of that was Krieger and Stewart, working with Tim Parker, identified a potential location for an injection well, use of one of the water district's wells that they drilled but haven't been using as a potential injection well site. So we've laid out the criteria that need to be looked at to determine whether it can be used under the regulations for the use of recycled water, and we have a hydrogeologist evaluating that right now. We should have those results available hopefully by the next board meeting, if not certainly by the following board meeting, to see if that looks like a good candidate. And if for some reason it's not, we'll look beyond that and try and identify a good location for an injection well or wells. Our next steps, we're continuing to develop the project. We need to look more closely at in detail at the treatment needs and the footprint of this to see how big a site we need. We've had some discussions. Capital Corps is out looking for funding for the project, so we've been interacting with them. And then we anticipate we'll have the final tech memo on the analysis by the end of the year. We can go to the next slide. I'll talk about the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Title 16 feasibility study. Capital Corps had identified that the Bureau of Reclamation has funding available for recycled water projects, and the first step to get in line for that funding is to prepare a feasibility study following their guidelines. The board authorized the water resource manager to prepare that feasibility study on July 22nd. We've been reviewing the requirements of a feasibility study under their guidelines. We've been putting an outline together. We're starting to sort of populate the outline with information we have from previous work that we've done. Sort of a first shot at sort of an enhanced outline of what it will look like. I've been exchanging emails with Trussell Technologies, who are a treatment specialist and are very familiar with the regulatory process on this also. We're going to get them that outline. We don't quite have the meeting nailed down for either next week or the week after, and start talking about our joint approach and getting this done. With that, I'll turn it over to Gene. Are you addressing the annual? Oh, Heather's on. Heather, are you addressing the annual water report?
I don't think Heather's on.
Oh,
I just texted with her. She is driving home from a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay.
Just so everybody knows. Hello, Gene's on, but I'll just let you know. We've gone through a series of trials and tribulations with COVID. Everybody has over the last 3 years, and it seems like now that we're on the down end side of that, we've been having lots of health issues. Heather having her basically her son, very young son, slipped and fell and hurt her knee. So she's had to have surgery on her knee. So she's going back and forth to the doctor and had a lot of work. So anyway, we've had other issues here, but staff keeps going. We're going to get through this. It's worse now than it was during COVID, but we're still going on. So anyway, just a couple of comments on what Jeff mentioned. Jeff did mention the meeting that we have with DWR staff. It was Kelly List and Derek, who's our project manager. And I will say that the meeting went very well. These folks are really good to work with. And this is sort of some accolades to the GA, the board, and everybody. That one of their comments, we obviously thank them for all their help because they've been very helpful getting us through this grant. It's a very nice grant, $7.6 million for us to get a lot of things done on this pipeline project. But then one of their comments back was, you guys, being the GA, are one of the best organizations we work with. So I want to let the board know that we're in good hands with the DWR. We work with them very closely, and they seem to be very comfortable working with the GA board and the staff. So I think that's great, good news. Jeff, one quick question. I know you had mentioned before regulatory compliance for the injection well, and I know we got delayed because of Joseph's situation. Can you give us an update on what we're looking at for regulatory compliance, a regional board, DDW type stuff?
The process?
Yeah, where we're at on it.
Well, where we're at. Well, really, we're just initiating it. We need to flesh out the program a little bit more. So we've got a project, but the next steps are we'll prepare a Title 22 engineering report that are required for all recycled water projects, and that'll be a very extensive report on the water quality of the recycled water, the treatment process, how we plan to operate it, where we're going to inject it, what the water quality will be in the ground once it gets there, the monitoring program we'll use in the ground to track it once it's underway. That'll need to be reviewed by both the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water. They're the ones who actually are the lead on that. That'll be a very extensive review. The Regional Water Quality Control Board will also use that document to review the project and provide comments to the Division of Drinking Water from the regional board's perspective on that. Once all of those comments have been addressed, the board will need to have a public hearing on the project and the Title 22 report. Once that's done, the regional board will issue a permit for the project. So that's sort of the regulatory process that we'll need to go through. But there's a lot of work to do to get through that. But we'll be using our groundwater model, making projections about where the water will go. There's operation issues that'll have to be addressed. So we are looking at all of that in our next phase. Once we get our feasibility study done and our alternatives analysis, we'd be moving towards the regulatory process. So early next year.
Okay, great, Jeff. Thank you. I know we've talked about it, and but might be know where we're going. That's great. Okay, next up is and I asked Heather to put this together kind of at the last minute, and she did. And yet she's at the doctor. Gene, I know you're working on the annual report. This is really just information and it's preliminary. I mean, this is our planned approach to get the annual report done. Gene, would you like to report on this, or do you want me to?
I can report on it. Thank you, Steve.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon. Almost afternoon, everyone. We've been having internal calls with the staff, with Stetson staff, for producing the annual report. It is in progress. We've given the TAC the water quality section, and we have a couple others that are an internal draft right now that we'll be giving out to the TAC. Our anticipated schedule is that by November 15th, the full draft will be together, and that annual
If you can hear us, Gene, we lost you there. Just hold on one second. I think they're working on something.
Later, we will be collecting comments.
Gene, can you back up to a little ways? We lost
Yes.
you there for about 30 seconds to a minute.
Oh, sorry. Our anticipated schedule starts with the November 15th board meeting. And at that point, we would be releasing the draft annual report to both the TAC and the board for review. And in the December board meeting, we would walk through the annual report at a board meeting. 2 months later, we would have collected all of the comments and review by both TAC and board members, and we would present a final draft annual report at a board meeting. And if there were any other changes, that would give us another month to make any additional changes to have a final annual report completed by March 8th. The submittal deadline is April 1st to DWR. Next slide. The data collection and monitoring that's been taking place since the last board meeting, the general comment, we received comments from the TAC for the water quality sampling, and in addition received some input for more sampling areas or where there may be data gaps in our sampling. And we're addressing them this fall when we go out to do water quality sampling. The first week of October will be a major field work for KCWA, the Navy, and the Water Resource Manager. It's collecting the groundwater levels and collecting water quality samples, which we do each year. We are planning, we have had calls with KCWA to coordinate the work. With the Navy, we will be supplying field staff to go out with a new Navy person to all of the wells for collecting that data. We will be collecting water levels at any well that the Water Resource Manager will be collecting water levels at any well that has telemetry equipment or data loggers in it. And KCWA plans to collect the remaining water levels off base that do not have any equipment in them. For water quality sampling, we are, the map on the right shows some small blue dots. Those are public water supply wells. There's 39 of them that report water quality results to DWR. So we will collect that data through DWR's website. In addition, we will be sampling 12 monitoring wells, 5 domestic wells in the main basin of Indian Wells Valley, and then an additional 6 wells in the El Paso sub-area. We have been working with the Navy real estate to put 5 telemetry stations on 5 of their monitoring wells. This is part of the GSP key well management. The Navy real estate did receive the check that was approved at the last board meeting, and they are estimating that within the next 2 to 3 months, we will have the real estate access agreements in place to review with the GA board. We have been continuing to update the DMS, which is the data management system, with recent data. I put the website on this slide. I highly recommend people go on this website. It is set up that you can sign in without a password to a public login. If you go to the map and you click on any well, you can see the hydrograph data of water levels throughout the basin. And in different areas, there's a certain rate of decline, and in other areas, it's fairly stable. But this is the data that we use to make decisions on within the basin. The next slide. The GSP model configuration management plan is still draft, but we've moved forward with the draft since earlier this year. It was, I think, February or March that we started setting up meetings with this group. And we will meet either sometimes monthly, sometimes we've met twice a month, or even weekly when we were discussing certain sets of data. What we completed in August is that we had an in-person meeting in Ridgecrest, water resource manager, a Navy representative, DRI representative, and with the technical modeling group, that's TMG, sorry for all these acronyms. They represent both BLM and the domestic well owners. And then on August 4th, we went out for an orientation field trip. We started early in the morning at 7 to try to not have too much heat on that day. And we spent the morning, I think we finished around noon. In August, we had a Teams call and meeting with this group, and the Navy presented XWIC review. That's their technical reviewers of the Rambo report and data to the group. In September 1st, we already had a meeting, and we reviewed historical and recent water quality data to remind everyone that this group, the purpose of this group this year, the work that is wanting to be accomplished, is to review all new data since about 2019, when we finished up the model and were developing the GSP. So all data that got completed from there to present, this group is reviewing and to look at making recommendations for updating the model for the 5-year report. So we are on track for this. We developed a configuration items list reviewed by the TAC, and we are going through different technicals with this group. The next meeting that we're planning is September 29th. It will be a Teams call with this group. And then on October 5th, we'll have another in-person meeting in Ridgecrest. And then the 6th, we will have another field trip. The field trip destination is still being determined. We have made requests with the Navy to do some hydrogeologic field a field trip on base. Next slide. The groundwater dependent ecosystems is something that we had as a data gap in the GSP. And we have been working with the Navy because most of the groundwater dependent ecosystems are on Navy on base. We have been working with the Navy going out to look at different sites. And what I reported last board meeting is that 3 sites were chosen, working with the Navy biologists. The transects were completed. It may be hard to see on this slide, but we have investigated 9 areas. And the 3 areas, areas 6, 8, and 9, did have groundwater dependent vegetation, so therefore ecosystems. There is on each of these 3 graphics to the right, there's an aerial view of approximately where it is, and then a zoomed in view of where the transect is. those were completed, and then on September 7th, so just last week, we installed data loggers at 3 of the Navy monitoring wells. What we are looking for is any changes in water level that could indicate, and along with doing annual transects of the vegetation, and then comparing those to see if there are any pumping influences to groundwater levels that are affecting these groundwater-dependent ecosystems. We are just beginning to collect data. When we go out in October, the data loggers will be downloaded, so we'll have 1 month of data. But this will be ongoing probably for another year to hone in on our exact reporting that we'll be doing for groundwater-dependent ecosystems. We are planning, we added the GDE, we are planning to add GDE monitoring to the groundwater monitoring program. This will be a part of the annual report. This will be reported in the annual report, what our monitoring protocols are going to be initially. October, I said we would be collecting the data logger data. And then October, November timeframe, the Navy biologist said that he would be able to write up his biological report for us to include in the annual report. Spring 2023 will be a repeat of these annual transects, and then they will be compared to the year before at each of the GDE sites. Next slide. The other project that we're working on is subflow, refining our estimates of subflow from Rose Valley into Indian Wells Valley. We are working on the Navy funding and contracting. We are planning on late fall, early winter for the well drilling and construction. And in addition, we are working with the California State Lands Commission for access to the existing sawmill wells, former sawmill wells, between USBR 10 and the well sites. The map on the right, the upper 2 yellow wells are the ones that we are planning on drilling. The red wells are where the former sawmill wells, groundwater wells were. And they were sealed on the top, like a plate was welded to the top of the well. But that is on state lands, California state lands property. So we are working with them for access. The green well at the bottom is USBR 10, and we do monitor that actively. It's also a CASGEM well. I think that is the last of my slides.
It is, that's great.
Yes, that is the last of my slides.
Thank you very
Steve,
much.
I'll turn it back over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Gina. Really, really good report. We're going to open up for questions. I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure, Gene, you were on yet, or if you were, you heard, and I'm pretty sure I'm not there. So I think it was Commander Benson mentioned the Navy coastal funding, and that the allocations are pretty much used up, and we're working on next year allocations right now. So I just wanted to mention that, so everybody knows what we're trying to do here. This Navy Coastal Royalty Fund has been a really a great opportunity. This is the first real project. I thought we had done another one, but apparently not like this. This is the first opportunity where providing the Navy coastal funding through the Navy has some contractual administrative hurdles, and we're in I'll say from our side, we're in a very much a learning process, trying to make sure we make sure we get the right documentation and the contracts in place. And And on the flip side, I know this is new for the Navy. The Navy has never done a contract like this for the Navy coastal funding to be able to provide the money to an outside agency like this for that Navy coastal funding. So we're breaking new ground. It's taking a little bit of time to pull it all together. We just had a staff meeting on this yesterday internally on how to coordinate it, and Gina is certainly she's providing most of the leadership on this to try to pull this together. We're using our administrative people out of our San Rafael office who are familiar with federal and Navy contracting, and April has been very, very helpful trying to pull this together. But we're going to pull the team together, and other than to let the board and the public know that we're working on this, it's also to let Commander Turner know that we will be reaching out to our contacts, and we'll include you, Commander Turner, on our next communication. We probably ought to set up some kind of a coordination for the next round of funding to make sure we're all on the right page and we're hitting all the marks we can. So that's just general information. So, but thank you for the input this morning, Commander Turner. We appreciate it. I think, Mr. Chairman, we're open for questions at this point.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Go first, right?
Go ahead, Stan.
Oh, okay. I have 3 questions and/or comments. The first one dealing with the annual report schedule. The schedule looks very good, as a matter of fact. My only concern is the maturity of the tools that were being used to generate the report. In the past, we've had several conversations regarding the ability to measure the change to groundwater and storage. So I assume that we've got that problem solved. Am I correct there?
Gene's involved in this. I'll try to answer. I will say that it is not solved. We've looked at a couple other methods, and we're still looking at it internally. But our intention is to have it solved for the annual report, but we are working on it.
Okay. Originally, we were told that it would be going to the TAC at the end of summer. And based upon the weather outside, we're real close to the end of summer. Like I said, the schedule, assuming that the tools are mature and we can get the information, ought to be good. But obviously, that one particular tool is essential to getting a meaningful report out. And the prior 3 reports have suffered due to lack of having a validated tool in that area. So I'm hoping that you are concentrating on getting that done in the very near future, and it can get transferred to the TAC so that they don't have to review that particular algorithm at the same time they're reviewing the report, because that will complicate their effort. My second comment has to do with the data collection, and it wasn't clear from the view graph whether the data collection that was occurring was just water quality, also the depth to water. It didn't appear that there were sufficient wells included to actually include the depth of water data collection. Can you confirm or deny or whatever?
Yes, I can. I apologize. So the figure with it was where we're collecting water quality, and I should have probably labeled that on the graph. We are doing a full sweep of all monitoring wells, similar to what we did in March.
Okay,
and we are adding extra staff to support KCWA in doing that.
Okay, so, and we've already lined up all the people we need to, and COVID is not going to be an issue this year?
That is correct. This is the very first water level measurement that KCWA is allowed to do in post-COVID. They've changed their rules. They are allowed to come out and to stay in a hotel room and go to domestic wells, which they were not allowed to do before.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. The third comment has to do with actually something that I read in the Capital Corps group report that indicated that the cost for our recycling effort, the development, was very high compared to the median that the state of California was looking at. And I was wondering if there was any what Stetson's understanding is, why are all of our cost bogeys looking like they're a factor of like 3 above what the state is claiming is the logical cost for developing a recycle plant or facility or actually system?
This is Steve and Jeff. I think if Jeff, you're still on, you might be able to respond to that a little better. I'll just say it's hard to respond, Director Retorta, not knowing not having the reference. And when you make a reference to something like a comparison of cost for projects, it's extremely important that you're trying to compare some level of apples and apples, because we've got a somewhat complicated system of projects here in the Indian Wells Valley, starting with the upgrade that the city's doing. At this point, we're looking at cost to go from secondary to tertiary treatment. And then in addition to that, if we're going to inject, we're looking to go to full advanced treatment under regulatory requirements. And then in addition to that, to inject, we're looking at the cost of physical facilities to inject and power costs. So I think if it's an apples to apples comparison, there's no reason why these costs should be any higher than any place else for an apples to apples comparison of projects. And I don't know if Jeff, you had anything to add to that, Jeff Elsley?
Yeah, this is Jeff, and I hadn't seen that comment. I'll take a look at that. Thanks, Director Retorta. Yeah, there's no reason the cost of developing this project should be any different than any place else. I would say that I'm actually a little relieved on that, because those are estimates that myself and my staff came up with, because it's a much easier problem to get too much grant funding than to not get enough. And that was been some of my concerns. We put these estimates out, and if we don't get enough money to complete the development of the projects, we're going to be in a tough position. So it sounds like we're asking maybe for more than we need, but the actual cost will be whatever they will be, and should be on the same order as other similar projects.
Yeah. And as a final comment, Director Torre, this is just information to make sure, I want to make sure you're aware of it. The team working on this with the Recycle Water Project, and the report that will come out with all the cost estimates includes the water district consultants, the city, and the city's consultants. It's not just a Stetson number, and we are definitely we've already used them, and we will be using the prior work that's been done by the water district.
Yeah, my only concern is if the state has got some numbers they're using from wherever, and again, I have no idea where their numbers come from or where ours are coming from, since I haven't seen the report. But I want to make sure that we are not being somehow looked upon as not being a good candidate for state funding, whether it be grants or loans. We need to be very careful that we're hopefully in line. Of course, the costs are going to be what our costs are, but nonetheless, we certainly don't want to look in an apples to oranges comparison, if that's what's happening, that we're costing that much more than anybody else. So as long as if you might want to talk to Capital Corps to find out why there is that issue, and if there's something that we can do to address that, so that the state looks upon us as being viable for recycled water. Recycled water could be very important to us in a few years. So that was all I had. Thank you.
I would agree. And I can assure you we're not gold plating anything on this project. So.
Director Retorta, this is Michael McKinney with Capital Corps. To answer your question, I've actually already talked with Jeff Helsley over that and had a discussion with the state of California on this very issue as to how they came to that number. They include in their water recycling development cost brackish water. recycling as a water recycling project. Those typically have a lower cost than our smaller projects. So as they develop an average cost, they are putting those projects in with a full scale water recycling. So from secondary treatment all the way through advanced treatment. Our project does have an added cost component with the injection. I think we need to make that very clear to the state of California as we do our applications for this, so that we do not have a competitiveness issue or a cost benefit analysis problem with the state of California. But I think that is something we're addressing with Stetson and working with them on. And from my understanding, they are not going to just take a straight average comparison. They're going to take a look at each project on its individual merits. However, in the water strategy document, they did put this out as a development cost for all water recycling projects across the state. So it's something we will have to address in each individual application.
Yeah, and that's all I'm really was trying to get to, is we need to make sure that all the information is there and everybody's communicating with everybody, so that there aren't misconceptions about what we're doing compared with everybody else. So it sounds like it's been started, so we just need to, finish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Director Hammond?
So yes, I'd like to just thank Gene for a very well done presentation, particularly with the annual water report. And one of the items in regards to that that I thought was really good was the February 8th final draft annual report being presented at the board meeting. So hopefully that'll satisfy any concerns that that the water district representative had in the past with not seeing the annual report before it goes out to the DWR. So good job. And I had one question in regards to the Rose Valley subflow project, and will that well also be gathering water quality data? And if so, would that be meshed in with the annual water quality data gathering?
Yes. So we have a series of geophysical data, that down borehole geophysical data that will be done, as well as water quality data. And when we collect that water quality data, we plan on collecting other wells surrounding in that area, in the northwest area, for a report. It will be in the water year 2023 report, because the work will be done after September 30th.
Perfect. Kind of assumed so, but thank you for clarifying that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Hammond. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Is there anybody that would like to speak on the Water Resource Manager's report? Okay, seeing none here, we'll go to the phones. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, this is Renee West-Delusk. I just have a question regarding the Bureau of Reclamation Title 16 feasibility study. How is that being paid for? Does it come out of the $7.6 million planning grant, or is there other funding to pay for that?
This is Jeff Helsley. The $7.6 million Sigma implementation grant, the scope of work is for the imported water project. So this Title 16 report is for the recycled water project. We don't at the moment have a grant that covers that. We are preparing that within the annual budget that the Groundwater Authority already has for the recycled water project. So it's not in addition to what was already budgeted. It's being done under what was already in the budget.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Steve and Jeff and Gene, for that report. We'll now go to item number 11, which is the General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have your financial report for the period ended August 31st. We also have a report from Capital Core Group summarizing their activities, what they've been working on, a couple of state grant opportunities coming up, another Sigma IP round 2 grant opportunity coming up, as well as a urban communities drought relief grant opportunity, and we'll be looking at both of those. In fact, there is a big guidance package in your packet with regard to that. Also information on the governor's water supply strategy for the state. If you have any questions, any additional questions, I guess I would defer to our Capital Core reps on that. And then finally, just we're continuing to work on activities for our communication and engagement plan, and you'll see in your packet there's another postcard that we have ready to go. This one is targeting our local well owners to let them know that we do have the shallow well mitigation program available, and encouraging them to contact us for assistance if their well is starting to fail.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board on the general manager's report? Okay, seeing none, are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll now move on to item number 12, and that is the PAC and TAC reports. And I will turn it over to Mr. Janis.
Thank you, Chairman Peters. As you recall, I've reported out of our June meeting the recommendations that we made for communication and engagement overall. And the PAC tasked the subcommittee that had developed the core of those recommendations, and the PAC modified them, and we gave you that report. That subcommittee was tasked with looking at that report and the direction from DWR, or recommended corrective actions from DWR, and several other items. So should we make formal changes to the C&E plan? And they tasked the subcommittee to go continue to meet and answer that question and come back with a recommendation. The subcommittee did meet, and the subcommittee concluded, yes, there were changes that needed to be made and should be made out of all those things that we reviewed, and submitted a draft of a new C&E plan. It was a first draft of a new C&E plan at this most recent PAC meeting. Now, we did not get to a final closure on it, and that was due to three reasons. Partly because of perhaps some of the lack of maturity in the first draft of it itself, but primarily due to the fact that we only had 3 or 5 of the 8 PAC members there, voting members, and a couple more non-voting members that were not there. So we wanted to make sure that we had all the PAC members there. Additionally, we had some information that the facilitation was reaching a reporting out point for the study phase, and going to make recommendations that may include changes to a communication plan or something involving the communications engagement plan. So in view of those 3 factors, we extended the timeline for the committee to take on board all the comments that we did hear at our recent PAC meeting. It was over a 2-hour meeting. We had some good comments. Take those on board, come back with a rewrite to the plan, and we have done so. The committee has one final meeting we have to dot the I's and cross the T's on it. We will be have a recommendation for the PAC to review at our September 22nd meeting. I anticipate that we will come out of that meeting and be able to report at the next meeting of this board on the recommended changes to the C&E plan overall. So that's the status. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Janis, and thanks to our PAC and TAC members. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, Judy Decker again. At the Monday night Water District meeting, Mr. Zadiba announced that DWR facilitators would be holding a public meeting regarding the information that they collected when they came here and met with people. I believe he said it would be October 4th. So I don't know if, David, you want to consider that or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. I believe the information for that facilitation will be, I'm sure, put out by the Water District. Is that correct, Director Rotora? The information regarding when the report from the facilitation is going to be published by the Water District?
The facilitation. I believe there is a meeting scheduled for, as I recall, maybe October 4th in the evening. Yes, at this facility, and I think it's 6 o'clock, but I wouldn't swear to it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, having no more items to consider, that brings us to the end of the agenda, and we will now adjourn to Wednesday, October 12th, 2022.